All right, you guys, we are back from, I think August was the last time we did this to discuss our 26-man World Cup roster. So to be clear, guys, this is not Pochettino's. We're going to do another video on Tax channel discussing Pochettino's 26-man roster, like who we think he's going to bring. Sorry.
Actually, one thing, my channel, what we're going to do actually is we're going to say what is the best USMNT roster right now. That's where I want to go with it, possibly. And there's a cat floating around.
Sorry, my roommate's cat.
but this,
Yeah.
but this one we're projecting to the future,
Okay.
2026, which is a bit different if we were to do the best roster now. Even though we're close, there's quite a bit that
But
can
we're
change.
projecting who we think should go to the 26 World Cup. We're not projecting who we think Poch will bring because we all
Mhm.
know Poch will bring some players that a lot of the fan base would not bring, right? So, um, this is based on a series that we've done every 3 months for 4 years now, at least. And we did it for the last World Cup. A lot of you guys know this series by now. So, we're going to look at what we selected last time for the 26-man roster, and then we'll make our changes based on whatever we think. Now, there's a couple of things to consider. One is we have a formation change, right? Since the last time we did this, where we played largely 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, we are now playing in the last 3 games a 3-4-2-1. I think it's very likely that's what Poch is going to go with at the World Cup. And so that's, at least for me, what I'm going to base my rosters on, a 3-4-2-1. And I'll explain as we go through the different positions what changes exactly, because they will change some things. For example, Tim Weah's position will change in this new formation. The other thing is there was a report out that some countries petitioned FIFA to allow 30-man rosters at the World Cup in 2026. Now, it's just a petition. It's just a piece of news. It hasn't been changed yet. We don't know if it will change. It's possible. I would not be for it because I think it's pointless. Typically, about 20 to 25 players play at the World Cup, right? The third goalkeeper almost never plays. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to have a bunch of players who are not as good as the players ahead of them. And for most countries, right? I mean, maybe for France, the difference between the 25th player and the 30th player is not large, you know, but for most countries that participate at a World Cup, there is a big gap between the 25th, well, maybe not the 25th, but between the 20th and the 30th player. And there will just be players on there that are just to fill out a roster but are never going to play. And so potentially what you could have then is unhappy players who are there training for 3 weeks before the World Cup. At the World Cup, they're never going to see the field. I don't think this is a good idea. I think 26 is more than large enough. You also have players who are not going to get a summer off because they're training at the World Cup, but they're never going to play. And so they're going to arrive exhausted to the European season. And that could be an issue. What are your thoughts?
Well, first, what you said is true, but I think those 30, the 30th, 29th, 28th players, they should not be unhappy if they get no minutes. They should be happy to be there. Like,
Agreed. But if you're there, you want minutes. You're like, oh, come on, let's go, you know?
yeah, usually what changes that is like if you are there and your team is losing, you're always going to think you can do better than the guy on the field. If you're winning, you got to just shut up. And only one team really wins the World Cup. So there could
Yeah.
be issues. I'm kind of like on the fence with this. In terms of the harm it can do of what you mentioned, that's going to be an issue for each team to manage their own issues, own internal issues of like, I mean, the U.S. men's national team had 26 players, and we were having issues with Berhalter, Reina, and this and that in the last World Cup.
Right.
I think I don't see it as a major problem. I just see it as unnecessary. I don't think it's not a season, right? If it was hey, it's a international season, you're gonna have a full year, 30 players, you're gonna have to rotate. You need those guys, even if the level drops, you need them.
Yeah.
The World Cup is very short, so you're bringing those 4 extra players where I don't see what the purpose will be. Like if you're in the World Cup and you're getting to a point where you have to use player number 28, 29, holy crap, what happened? Like what
Yeah.
happened? You would have
Hire your
needed like
medical staff. I mean,
yeah, unless it's like one of that World Cup, the 2006, where Netherlands and Portugal had like 16 yellow cards and 4 reds each, and it's like okay, now we're down to like 15 players, but that was like one game.
yeah.
At the end of the day, it seems unnecessary, and we kind of talked about this, me and you, a little bit before. If they actually do that, what we personally talked about and we thought you should do is the last 3 players are not supposed to play. So
Yeah.
bring like the best of the best prospects you have, and they're going to be fully aware that they're not going to play. I doubt they'll create an issue because it's not really like a deserving call up, but bring them in and build for the future because I don't see the point. Like, want to bring Roldan, bring him, but I'm talking about the prospects. And because between bringing the prospects and doing what like Berhalter did in the last World Cup, which was Jordan Morris, Shaquille Moore, Areola didn't go, but
Helen Acosta,
like guys that you're
Aaron
like,
Long.
they're not going to help, right? So
No.
bring a prospect. So he's already in a World Cup at that young age, and he's aware that he won't play. But obviously, when we talk about this, we're talking about a 30-man roster.
Yeah.
26, I think pretty much all 26 should be useful players, in my
Yes.
opinion. Those extra
Yeah.
four, I just don't know how much they'll have to contribute. But those are my
Yeah.
thoughts.
With a 30-man roster, I'd be in favor. The last three, you just bring Diego Cochin, Mathis Albert, and Kevin Sullivan and be like, listen, none of you are going to play, but you get to participate in this experience because we think you have a bright future. Work hard, push the other guys in training, absorb the atmosphere, absorb what it feels like to go to a World Cup and get ready for the next one.
Mhm.
That should be kind of the vibe. But
It
right now, we're
didn't
talking about
That's
a
one thing.
26.
Didn't England even do that with a 23-man roster in the past where they brought like Theo Walcott when he was like
They brought
17?
Theo Walcott. Yeah, he hadn't even played any professional minutes for Southampton. Um, or I think he was at Arsenal at that point, but he was in their academy. But he'd never played a professional game for Arsenal, and they brought him. So not that it helped much. He didn't end up doing anything when he did play for England, but that should tell you a lot about England's depth back in, I think this was 2006.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's jump in here from our rosters from last time. Okay, so these are the three goalkeepers I had last time: Matt Turner, Matt Freese, and Chris Brady. Now, I think everybody kind of agrees Turner and Freese are our best two. And so they're going to go. Honestly, the last one, I prefer to bring a younger goalkeeper, right? A guy who isn't going to play, but he's here for the experience, somebody that has potential, and a guy who, sure, you don't know if he's going to be an amazing keeper down the line, but he has the potential to fight for starting spot in the next World Cup. And so you give him this experience now. Is there a big difference right now between Chris Brady, Patrick Schulte, Zach Steffen? You could argue Jonathan Klinsmann. I don't think so. I think there's not a huge gap between any of our goalkeepers right now. So Turner and Freese are number one and number two. Freese first for me. And then I would still bring Chris Brady because he's the youngest goalkeeping prospect we have that has professional experience. Obviously, Cochin is the heir apparent, but he has no professional experience whatsoever. I'm going to keep Chris Brady for now, but honestly, I wouldn't care. If it's Zach Steffen, fine. If it's Patrick Schulte, fine. If it's Jonathan Klinsmann, fine. If it's Diego Cochin, I'm fine with that
What if
too. I mean,
it's a
the kid is
Beaudry?
then we something is very, very wrong at US Soccer if Adam Petrie is the third goal. But yeah, that's what I would keep Chris Brady. I would be fine with Diego Coach in there also because typically the third goalkeeper isn't going to play. So I'd bring the youngest goalkeeper we have that has professional experience and has some promise. He played a big role in Chicago Fire making the playoffs this year. He's still just 21. This is his third season as a goalkeeper, and I think he's only going to get better. So I would still bring Chris Brady. So
Okay.
nothing changes for me. These are yours.
Okay. So there's a few interesting things here. Matt Turner, Matt Freese, like you said, they're our best goalkeepers right now, which is pretty sad, right? I wouldn't mind if they were like a backup option. I would hope we would have a better goalkeeper, but it is what it is. And then when it comes to our depth, it's even worse.
Yeah.
If it reaches a point where goalkeeper number 3 has to play in the World Cup, I think we're already in big trouble, right? I'm not very confident on Matt Freese and Matt Turner themselves, and I think right now they are the clear number 1 and 2. Which, just to make it clear, clearly Matt Freese is the starter right now, but between Turner and Freese, I think it might be the same level if both are in good form.
Pochettino hinted after this camp that maybe Turner could get some minutes in November. How do you feel about that?
I think I'm okay with it. I think we even talked about this in your post game. I do think that you should continue to start Matt Freese until he actually makes meaningful mistakes. It's like, Matt Freese, it's your position to lose, But I understand it because Pochettino also realizes that Matt Freese could get injured, right? And Matt Turner, I would be okay with them splitting games in November. And the other thing that might be one of the reasons is right there. I know it's not updated because he was at the time. Matt Turner's with New England, and if my
Yeah.
memory doesn't fail me, they didn't qualify to the playoffs. New York City FC did. So
Yeah.
between taking Matt Freese from the playoffs, you keep him there and then just say, Turner, you got your opportunity. And then in the January camp, they will both be there again, Turner and
I
Matt Freese.
Even with the playoffs, I would still bring Matt Freese. I think the guy has such limited high level experience because he plays in MLS that you give him every opportunity to play against international competition. Because if he's your starter at the World Cup, you want him to have as much experience as possible. So playoffs or not, I would still bring Matt Freese to this camp, this November camp. I mean,
Yeah, it's just that Pochettino seems to be very political when it comes to the way he manages it with their clubs. He never wants the club to be angry, and that's why we've seen many weird call-ups. Like for example, A Rob came into this camp in October not being fit, and then the justification to not bringing Dest that was playing. He played for PSV
yeah,
the weekend before was that he wasn't fully fit. And then Pulisic was injured, and then like once he sent Pulisic home against Mexico. This one he didn't, and then Pulisic gets injured. It's just very confusing. I think that Matt Freese, depending on how the playoffs are going, he might not be called in, and that's why he might have mentioned the minutes for Matt Turner. I'm okay with it. Maybe November and January, those two camps. The January camp is not very important, but I guess for the goalkeepers it will be. Split it. Give 2 games to Freeze, 2 games to Turner. And then in March, you need to have major decision. And whoever the starting goalkeeper is in March, they need to be starting.
yeah.
No more experiments in March because that's the last camp before the roster call up. I am actually going to plagiarize your work. I'm going to copy and paste it, actually. Worse than plagiarizing it. I'm going to put Chris Brady for coaching just because I think if it does reach a situation where the third goalkeeper has to play, even though I can't remember a World Cup where that did happen to any
Okay.
team, not just the US, Cochin hasn't played professional soccer. So
Yeah.
if he has to play, this could be a disaster. And it could be something that even messes with the dude's career psychologically, right? If we
Right.
lose and he's just like making mistakes left and right, could be nervous. So in that sense, bring Brady. He's been playing professionally, a lot of minutes for at least 2 seasons, right? And
This is
looking,
his third season as the pro because he took over when Gaga left to Chelsea.
yeah. So just bring Brady because the third goalkeeper is not expected to play. And if you look at our young goalkeepers, he's probably like a top 3 in terms of like prospects for the goalkeeping position with coaching, maybe Stone. I don't know what's going on with Gaga Slonina these days, riding Chelsea's loan army or bench. But I would switch and put Chris Brady. Yeah.
Is there a universe where Diego Cochin, wanting to go to the World Cup, says to Barca, listen, I'm your fourth choice keeper right now. You really don't need me. Loan me out somewhere, even to a Spanish second division team for the second half of the season. And now he's got a little more experience, and maybe Poch goes okay. We see how he does. If he's doing well, you bring him as the third goalkeeper. Barcelona typically doesn't like to loan out players, though.
No, they don't loan. So I would say the odds of that happening are close to zero. And even if he gets a loan, the odds are still close to zero of him getting called up because of the loan. Unless, of course, he gets a loan to the La Liga side and he's doing incredibly. That changes a lot. But I think that what you said is more likely. If he does get a loan for some reason, they accept it. It would probably be to a second division team, which for his development will be great because it's
Yeah.
still professional minutes. But I don't think that'll impact him playing or not. I don't think so. I don't think he'll get called in. I'll be surprised.
If he's not loaned out, I say call him up for January camp. I don't know if Barca will let him go,
They didn't
but why
release him to
not?
the U20 World Cup.
Yeah, they didn't release him to you. Or they did release him, but then look, I actually understand where they came from. They had one goalkeeper left. They needed a backup. I don't hate I hate Barcelona for doing it because, and by the way, the team that we lost to Morocco 3-1, two of those goals were on Bodri, or at least Bodri played a major part in them. Morocco won the under 20 World Cup in the end, beating Argentina 2-0 in the final. If we had had coaching in goal, there's a very good chance we win that game. And now maybe a clear run to the final for us, right? Like it's frustrating that we lost coaching because it would have felt like it would have been a very different situation for this under 20 teams World Cup's hopes. But anyways, let's move on into fullbacks. So these were the fullbacks I had last time: Serginho Dest, Joe Scally, Anthony Robinson, and Kevin Paredes. Now, at the time, this was August. It was supposed to be Kevin Paredes' big breakout season for Wolfsburg. He was looking really good in preseason. And then, in very Kevin Paredes fashion, he got injured yet again. And I think this is probably the fourth major injury this guy's had in his young career. So, sorry, Kevin, gonna have to cut you. Now, here's the thing: this position changes for me because of the 3-4-2-1. This now becomes wingbacks. So the wingbacks, I'm still going to bring 4 wingbacks, right? And this is where you have Serginho Dest, Joe Scally, Anthony Robinson, and Tim Weah. Weah has played wingback many times for Lille, for Juventus, and even for Marseille, and has played recently as wingback for the US against Australia, and actually against Ecuador on the right and on the left. So he's versatile, he's flexible, he can play wingback. This is where I bring Tim Weah as a wingback in our new formation. Then you don't need Max Arfson there because Scally, Dest, and Weah can all play on the left or on the right. So you have a lot of flexibility. Only
Weah
A-Rob
can also do the cool step overs that Arfston
he
does.
can do the same cool step overs that Arfson does, but he's defensively reliable. So these are the 4 that I would bring. I toyed with the idea of bringing a 5th because there's 26 players, but I'm going to use my sort of extra player or 2 in other positions. We also have some midfielders who can sort of cover as wing back as well. So these are the 4 that I bring to a World Cup next year.
Okay. Let's see.
Let's see what Tack did. So last time, you only had 3.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to add one there. I kind of hate to do this. It's just that you go first. But because we changed to we finally went to a back 3. And me and you actually wanted a back 3 a long time ago, mainly because it suits Dest and A-Rob better. Mainly.
Yes.
But overall,
it
even
also allows for 2 creative midfielders on the field.
Yeah.
And because wing is one of our weakest positions. So it basically eliminates pure wingers.
Yes, essentially. And even when you think about it, like, for example, let's go very deep into the winger depth chart. You get like a Zendejas. He is probably also better tucked inside. So,
well, he's not even that deep. He's probably our 3rd best winger right now.
But he's also better tucked inside. Pulisic's better tucked inside. And then you have Tillman and hopefully, fingers crossed, Gio Reyna gets his act together. I can't believe we're still talking about this at this point, but it is true. And it allows you also, for example, McKennie can play as a wing back. McKennie can also play that attacking midfielder role. McKennie's kind of becoming a duck player, right? Where he can do everything. Doesn't really excel at anything, but he's like good at, does everything fine, can play anywhere.
Pochettino thinks you're talking about Roldan.
He said Roldan is the perfect player.
The perfect player. And yet nobody has any interest in him outside MLS. I wonder why.
Roldan is literally the duck analogy that I've done many times, where it's like he's a duck. He can do everything. Ducks can walk, but they suck at it. They can swim, but they suck at it. They can fly, but they suck at it. And even when they poop, they're very bad at it, but they do everything. All right. There's nothing a duck can't do, but there's nothing that a duck can do very well. I'm just going to add Weah as well, because I also know that McKennie can fill in if needed. But if you have 4, you have a backup for each. Joe Scally can play both sides.
Yeah.
Weah can play both sides. He played as a left wing back, actually, one of the games this camp. So I would just add Weah. And I also, obviously, am already, spoiler alert, McKennie will make my roster. McKennie can play right wing back, left wing back. Having 5 good options is more than enough for the World Cup.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. And now here's where it starts.
Wait, Pete, one question. Would you still have Joe Scally back, even though he does donuts with golf carts?
Yeah, I would, because this is a guy who's been starting in the Bundesliga for 4 years now, who actually was one of the few players to come out of our miserable Copa America campaign with any kind of like respect. He did really well, at least defensively. Look, he's never going to be a bomb down the field and get involved in the attack player, but he's also been playing wingback for Gladbach too, which is kind of weird that as Pochettino changes his formation to wingback, so does Gladbach, and they now have playing him as a wingback too. It just doesn't make any sense, especially when we brought Nathan Harriel, who was benched by under 20 starter Frankie Westfield for the Philadelphia Union this season. is somehow brought to the roster over Joe Scally because apparently, allegedly, because of a golf cart incident in which he did a donut. Should that keep you off the roster?
What if he's using Pochettino's using Joe Scally, like, when you kill a mosquito and instead of throwing the mosquito out or cleaning it
You
up,
leave it out.
you leave it as a message to the other mosquitoes. You all show up here. That's what's gonna happen to you all. So he just kind of like picked someone and he's like, just gonna sacrifice Joe Scally to put everyone else in line.
I'll say this. If he was trying to do that, the message has been sent. Didn't call him up for the Gold Cup, didn't call him up for the friendlies before the Gold Cup, didn't call him up for the last two camps. At some point, it starts feeling more like spite than a message being sent. He's playing generally well for I mean, he's playing Joe Scally level, right? He's not a world beater, but he's solid enough and reliable in a top 5 league in the world, in a top 4 league in the world, to be honest. And yet somehow we don't call him. I don't really understand this one. It feels weird to me, and feels a little spiteful from Poch, you know? Now, no one's having a real issue with it because he's not like a locked-in starter. He's not a game changer. So I think for a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I don't love it, but, it is what it is. I
Yeah.
think we'll find out what is very quickly if Max Arsene has to play a game at the World Cup and we realize this guy can't defend the Gold Cup. What makes you think he's going to defend at a World Cup?
Well, in a World Cup, his stupid step overs are not going to work,
They're
as
not going to
they
be.
as they haven't for the most part. Besides the game we played against Japan's B team, and he got one right, and the cross was poor. Zendejas had to somehow find a way to score a wonder goal, but people get caught on that one moment because he tries flashy things up top, but guess what? Didn't really work this last game. I don't know if Pochettino's also falling out of love with him because he did play Brendan Aronson as a left wing back for a few minutes, which is, to me, was a bit
Anton
odd.
Weah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in way. And then he put Arfston towards the end. Was like, if Arfston was on the bench, why didn't you just send him instead of Brendan on the left wing back position? But whatever. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah. Let's continue on. So center backs. So back then I had these 5 center backs: Mark McKenzie, Noah Kai Banks, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. Now, the way I'm constructing my roster is I want coverage in all positions. I want 2 players to cover in at least every single position. And so I'm going to bring 6 center backs. I'm going to keep these same 5, and I'm going to add a center back who also has some positional versatility. Tack, you know him quite well. I'm going to bring Alex Freeman. And the reason I'm bringing Freeman is we saw him play a little bit at center back against Ecuador. He's not a very technical player as a wing back or as a right back. But I think if you're going to have him on the field, I'd rather see him as a center back. He's big, he's tall, he's strong, he's athletic. Reading of the game still has a lot to be, it leaves a lot to be desired. But if you're going to bring a 6th center back, I bring Alex Freeman because in a pinch, he can also cover at wingback. And also, if I look around for a 6th center back, I don't see a good one. Even Cameron Carter-Vickers, I have him there. But really, the only 4 I'm okay with playing are McKenzie, Banks, Ream, and Richards. Other than that, I would be hesitant to throw either Vickers or Freeman into a World Cup. But I'm going to have them as coverage nonetheless because you never know. And you might say, well, why not just bring 5 center backs? Here's why. If something happens to one of those 5 center backs and you're playing a back 3, now you only have 1 defender left on the bench for the rest of the World Cup. And that makes me a little nervous. And so I am going to bring Alex Freeman as the 6th center back because also, what were my options? Walker Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, Austin Trusty, Tristan Blackman. None of those options are good, in my opinion.
How did
So
Tristan Blackman even make it to the national team is still
nobody understands.
freaking
Nobody
insane.
knows.
Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So these are the 6 center backs that I would bring to it. And also, Freeman is young, right? You're like, okay, maybe this guy could improve. Certainly he's got the athleticism to be at a certain level. Technique still is lacking, but let's see what his decision making does. He may end up as a center back in the long run, for all we know. So I bring him as my 6th center back. And
yeah.
then
Freeman somehow in MLS has like 10 goal contributions or around that this year. Somehow.
Yeah, but then every time we see him play for the national team, it's kind of mid.
No, but even in MLS, like the goal contributions are there, but the guy can't combine in the final third. Like he's not good in tight spaces. The defensive setup improves against him, and he's going to be ineffective.
Yeah. I think that tells you more about MLS than anything else.
Yes. What was mine last time? I'm not going to add Freeman, by the way.
No, yours was the same as mine. Because
Yeah,
really, these probably are 5 best center backs.
Yeah, I'm keeping the same. Nokai Banks looks like he's starting to play more and more for Augsburg, 2 starts in a row. Obviously, he's going to oscillate throughout the season. It's perfectly normal, but he is playing at a Bundesliga level, and he is probably even our most promising center back. Not the best one right now, for sure. That's Richards, but most promising. I wouldn't add anyone. I can add other players in the midfield or even forward. Because if we play a back 3, I think Scally is perfectly capable also on playing that third center back down the right. I think he'll do perfectly fine. He'll be technical enough to help build out of the back. Defensively, that's what he did in the Gold Cup, right? Sorry, not the Gold Cup. Copa America did a good job against Vinicius and many other good players throughout it. That's why he was one of the few players. Luis Diaz. So I think Scally can do that role. I would 100% not trust Alex Freeman in the World Cup. Because even on defense, people don't like to criticize MLS players because they get very sensitive when we talk about MLS players for some reason. But I think he tunes out way too much to be a center back, Alex Freeman. More specifically, I remember that Inter Miami game for Orlando City where the last goal, at least, and he was mostly poor throughout the game, but the last goal, the guy was just like, oh, he's gassed. He's 21. And I'm sorry, you can't use that excuse that he was gassed. The minutes in MLS are the same minutes in the World Cup. In the 90th minute, is he just going to gas in the World Cup and allow someone to score? I'm going to go with keeping those 5 because I think Scally will be much more reliable if I need a 6th center back option. There is one question mark here about Tim Ream because for experience, he's there. Is Tim Ream actually, outside of the experience part, probably on the ball, because you don't lose that, is he even better than like Miles Robinson these days?
I'd say he plays better for the national team than Robinson does.
I would still take him over Robinson because I would not trust Miles in the World Cup, but Tim Ream is a big concern, very big concern.
Particularly the lack of pace, right? I think that's become an issue, especially as we play a very high line against good teams. We could easily get torched. Now, there's a world, it's not going to happen, but there's a world where maybe you try Noah Kai Banks at left center back. You put Mark McKenzie on the right and Chris Richards in the middle. For me, I would still have Ream, just because I think experience matters when you're defending. I just think we need to find a way to maybe be a little bit more conservative with that back line, especially against the good teams.
Sit deeper.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sit a little deeper. Maybe have 2 proper defensive midfielders in front of the back 3 so that...
Yeah, Roldan and who?
Exactly, Roldan and
Roldan and who?
I mean, I think if you've got Tyler and Johnny or Tyler and Tessman or Johnny and Tessman, I'm okay with that because now you have a little more defensive coverage. For the back line is not perfect, which is why a back 3 actually makes more sense. People used to say, oh, you can't play a back 3. It's our weakest position. That's exactly why you need to play a back 3, to cover. Because even Chris Richards has weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses on this group. So let's see what Noah Kai Banks looks like the rest of the season. But there's a chance we go into a World Cup with Ream, Richards, and Banks as the starting 3.
Possibly. That one's not as crazy as coaching because Banks is actually playing in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, and I think he'll be benched at some point. I think he'll have a bad game and get benched and come back, which is, like you said, very normal for a young defender, especially at 18 years old.
The 11 Yanks Patreon is not only a great way to support the channel, it's filled with elite content I can't put out on YouTube. The top 10 that you see on YouTube every week, that's available on the Patreon with the actual clips from the game instead of just a sketched screenshot. After every USMNT game, I put a 20-minute breakdown of the game with my commentary and tactical insights, usually things I didn't always catch the first time around in the post-game stream. With the Under-17 and Under-20 World Cups coming up, I plan to do the same for these 2 tournaments just like I did last time. There's also extra content like young player scouting reports or all-touch comps from certain players of interest. Thanks to everybody who is already supporting the channel via Patreon. It really helps to keep me going and continuing to do what I do.
These were my
Wait.
midfielders.
We skipped my center backs, no? Or without? Oh no, that was mine. Sorry. Go
Those
ahead.
were yours. Yeah, those were yours. So now we're going into midfielders. These were my midfielders last time. Paxton Aronson, Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, Brendan Aronson, Johnny Cardoso, Tyler Adams, and Malik Tillman. Now here we also have a positional change. I am thinking of midfielders as guys who can play in the double pivot in the 3-2-4-1 or the 3-4-2-1. That is how I'm thinking about midfielders. It's only two positions. You need at least one or two guys who are defensive midfielders and one or two guys who are a little bit more box to box but can stay deep if necessary. And that's how I'm looking at constructing my midfield group. So believe it or not, I'm actually only bringing 4 defensive, quote unquote, central midfielders. And these are the 4 that I'm bringing: Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, Tanner Tessman, and Weston McKennie. For me, Weston McKennie is still better in a double pivot. I don't think he's a 10. I don't think he's a creative player. I think he's a good box-to-box midfielder, and he's lost some weight, and that's good to see. And hopefully he can pick it up with Juve before the end of the season. But these are the 4 central midfielders that I bring. There's a lot of experience in this group with Adams and McKennie. You have Adams is more purely defensive, but Tessman can sit deep as well. Johnny can sit deep. He can also roam forward a little more. McKennie can sit deep and also roam forward a little more. So I am perfectly happy bringing the 4 sort of defensive central midfielders in that formation. You have any thoughts on mine?
No. I'll talk about mine there. But overall, to your point, yes, I agree.
I thought about other guys that I could bring a 5th as coverage, but Aidan Morris, James Sands, Yunus Musa, Christian Roldan, none of them really excited me enough to waste a roster spot on them.
I might have an extra spot compared to yours because I didn't add to the center back.
You could use your extra spot in the midfield. Let's see what you got.
That's where I might do it a little bit different.
So yours were
I had Paxton. I had Paxton.
Yeah, but this was before the context. We both had Paxton. Paxton had just come off. He was voted the young player of the season in the Eredivisie, wasn't he? Or at least for Utrecht, he was.
He was the young player of the season. He was back with Eintracht.
He's back with Eintracht in preseason, and it looked like he was at least going to get some minutes, and this was a kid very much on the up and up. Instead, he decided to go back to MLS, to Colorado, to play a 10, which is, by the way, not the position he played for Utrecht when he had his best ever season. He played as an 8 in a double pivot for Utrecht. Went to Colorado. They replaced Georgi Mihailovic with him, and he's done nothing ever since then. In a different position, Colorado didn't make the playoffs. Chris Armas was big mad that somebody said that was true, that they didn't make the playoffs. Different story. Very soft MLS coaches, guys. Very, very soft. So I understand why we both had Paxton, and he sort of took a wrong turn in his career.
Yeah. So let me try to do what you did, where you set up, because you put defensive midfielders, because we'll usually have 2 guys there. So you put 4 total. So you have 2 starters, 2 backups. I'm going to add an extra player there. And this is weird because I'm more in between Musa and Aidan Morris. Those are 2 players that I probably wouldn't want them playing in the World Cup, but I'm going to bring Yunus Musa. And I'll explain to you why. I think he can play there if he has one of those options that you mentioned. He can also play as a wingback. That is important, that there is that versatility with Musa. And yes, he won't really shine for the most part, as we have been seeing. We saw with Milan, Atalanta so far. But Musa can hold his own for the most part. And Musa, unlike Aidan Morris, he does have World Cup experience. He did go to a World Cup. He actually played well in the World Cup. He was very good against England, to our surprise. So I would have on your defensive midfielder section that you put, then you're going to have the 10s, and we'll talk about that in a second, which the 10s will even include wingers, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I'll have 5 guys. So I'll have the 4 that you had. I'll have McKennie, Tanner, Johnny, and Tyler. And then I'll add Yunus Musa as the 5th guy. And Musa obviously becomes also an option on the wingback position as well.
Yeah. Especially if, like, in the end, you end up having to move Joe Scally into defense. It's okay. You still have Musa who can cover at wingback too.
Yeah, because let's say McKennie's playing very well in midfield. You don't want to sacrifice him and put him on the wingback position. So then Musa becomes the last option there. And I mean, look, for what we talk a lot of crap about Musa. It's true. It feels like he has stagnated, doesn't offer much in the final third, but he has been playing in La Liga, Serie A, and he doesn't he doesn't look Champions League, World Cup. He hasn't looked great the past few seasons, but he's also not a player that looks out of his depth, right?
No.
So it's a guy that, and based on what we saw in the 2022 World Cup, he is one of those players that if he's in the World Cup game, I'm not going to be like worried. Could he play like shit? Of course. Of course he could. But I wouldn't be overly concerned about Musa having to play. So he would be my fifth one.
Okay. That's fair enough. I like it. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense to me too. All right, so now we're getting into what used to be called wide forwards, but this is a positional change as well. And most of you guys who watch the channel regularly already know this, but if anybody's new, in a 3-4-2-1, you basically play 2 10s in a sort of roaming role. Typically, they play as tucked in wingers, sort of in the half spaces, but they have room to roam. They can play central, they can drift wide to combine. They can go and support the striker. They can drop back and help to try and get balls off of the midfield. It is much more of a central playmaking role now rather than forwards because it's a complete formational shift. And I actually that's one of the things that I think I really like about this formational shift is oftentimes in midfield, we wouldn't have enough creativity. And now you're basically putting 2 players on the field whose whole job is creativity, right? Their job is to create. So this was the quote unquote wide forwards. I had Pulisic, Weah, Luna, and Haji Wright, but now I'm changing it and I'm actually bringing a lot of this position. I have Christian Pulisic, Malik Tillman, Brendan Aronson, Diego Luna, Alejandro Zendejas, and yes, my wild card, Giovanni Reina. So for me, Pulisic and Malik Tillman are the starters. Zendejas can offer something a little bit different. Diego Luna has not been great against good teams. But in terms of like, who do you bring for this position? I think it's Diego Luna is at least unpredictable off the bench. Maybe. We'll see. Brendan Aronson I brought because if you're defending a lead, you can bring him on to play in that position and he will press and he will work hard and he will defend. We've seen he can also play wing back apparently as he did against Australia. Zendejas is in very good form. He's a very technical player. He's not a pure winger, but he can create. He's got 27 goal contributions in Liga MX. I mean, it's Liga MX, okay, but still, it's better level than MLS. He is in his prime right now, and he's playing really well. And then Gio Reyna I brought because I think if you need a goal in a World Cup and you have 10 minutes left and you're going to get knocked out of the World Cup, that is your wild card, Giovanni Reina, because yes, he hasn't been in good form the last few years. This may change by the next time we do this video. If he gets injured again or he's playing like shit for Gladbach, yeah, that may change. But as of right now, I still bring Gio Reyna. He's probably the 26th guy on my roster. Like he'd be the first cut. But he's there as a wild card because you throw Gio Reyna on the last 10, 15 minutes, you just don't know what can happen. With someone of his talent and ability that he still has.
What other options we have?
Yeah, exactly. What are the other options, right? Sebastian Berhalter, Luca De La Torre,
Paxton Aronson.
Jack McGlynn. Although McGlynn would be more of in a double pivot, in my opinion. But yeah, like compared to the other options, I still bring Giovanni Reina for this position. So that's what I'm going to do with these 6. And also, some of these guys can play other positions as well, right? If you decide for some reason to go back to a 4-2-3-1, Pulisic can play wings, and Diaz can play wing, Aronson can play wing.
No, Malik Tillman can play in a double pivot if it's a weaker opponent, which, yes. Look, it's the expanded World Cup, and I don't want to talk down on teams because I didn't really watch Cape Verde, for example, but that might not be a great team, right? New Zealand. So you sometimes can put Malik Tillman in a double pivot, maybe if you're trying to get an early goal, get a lead, and then defend. Yeah. Now, as for mine, I actually don't. I want to see what I had last time, but I don't think I'll change anything from yours. It's essentially the same concept, same idea. Yeah, those were the winger options. The one player that I was a little reluctant to add because his level has been exposed more and more time in, time out is Diego Luna.
Yeah.
You talked about the other ones. Pulisic, obviously a lock, not just a lock, a starter. Malik Tillman, as of now, a starter. Zendejas, a good option, and playing tucked inside, Zendejas will be more effective. Brendan Aronson, one thing you didn't mention that I want to add is the same thing I said about Musa with Aronson. He also played in the World Cup, right? He didn't look as
Playing
good
in
as
the Premier
Musa.
League right now. He's playing in the hardest league in the world. He's not playing well, but he is gaining a lot of experience.
Yes, I think he's a player that very likely won't look out of his depth in whatever situation you place him, and he will be annoying.
I don't
Gio
think he
Reyna,
will create at a World Cup. I don't think he's going to offer you much in the attack. But as a
no,
defensive, energetic, hardworking, pressing player, yes.
he could score a scrappy goal like he does or did last season for Leeds a few times. That can happen. But out of the options we have, one of the best ones there, Gio Reyna, it goes back to the question I asked you. It's like, if Gio Reyna is healthy, and we've seen what he can do in the past, and I know it's not the same Gio Reyna, doesn't look like the same Gio Reyna, but assuming he's playing here and there and looking fine in the Bundesliga, what other option do you have, or options? Like, who
Yeah.
else? Like, you're going to say, oh, bring in Sebastian Berhalter. I'm sorry, if I bring him, I'm not playing him. And you're going to say, what about Roldan for the vibes? And it's like, we're trying to build the best roster here in terms of ability. Sure, maybe Roldan has some impact off the field, which you can only judge if you're there. I can't think of a player. What, Mihailovic? It's got to be Gio Reyna. Like, if you're gonna throw a wild card, like you said, it's like, okay, we're losing, throw Reyna in there. Let's see what happens. He can pull something out of nothing. Very
Yeah.
likely, from what we've seen with him right now, he wouldn't pull jack shit right now. Like, right now, nothing would happen. But I know for a fact Sebastian Berhalter ain't pulling any tricks in the World Cup. Neither is Roldan. Neither is Mihailovic. That couldn't even do it in the Olympics.
They're
So
not
that,
wild cards. They are known properties that are not good enough. Gio Reyna is a wild card.
and I think Luna, for example, is very close to what you just said of
Yeah.
Berhalter and all that. He's very close, but I still think Luna is more unpredictable than those players, and he can occasionally do something, probably not against good opponents. But I have to have Luna there as well alongside Gio because I can't think of who else. Like,
Yeah.
we don't have that kind of, and that goes back to what we were talking about, the 30-man roster. It's like, look at how we're squeezing names right now to make it to this one. And we're essentially assuming no injuries because, for example, Pulisic's injured right now. If the World Cup was right now, Pulisic was not available.
Well,
And
right now, A-Rob, Pulisic, and Tillman are all not there if the World Cup was
exactly.
right now.
So we're squeezing names. It just comes to show a little bit of our depth. And trust me, there are national teams with worse depth than us. Many teams. In the World
Yeah.
Cup, at least 20, right?
Yeah.
And in that sense, that's when we talked about the 30-man roster. Those last 4 spots, I just don't know who do you place. Like, at that point, if he
Well, it's
brings
going to be De La Torre, Sebastian Berhalter, Jack McGlynn, and Nathan
Roldan.
Ariel.
No, Roldan.
Roldan, yeah.
Well, actually, Roldan is in the 26-man roster, but we'll talk about that in the separate
That's
video.
Pochettino, yeah.
Yeah. So
Patrick
for me,
Aguimang makes it.
but I'll keep the same as yours. Pulisic, Tillman, Zendejas, Reyna, Brendan Aronson, and Diego Luna. But I'll say this again. If they're all healthy, I don't see how it changes by the World Cup. And I know some names, like you can talk, Aronson's questionable, Gio Reyna's questionable, Luna's questionable. I just don't see it right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's
and
better
that,
that you bring? That's
yeah,
the question.
that's the point. And I'm also not seeing a young and up and coming player that will be developed on time. Because you could say, hey, Mathis Albert can do it's like not on time, right? Not on
Well, it
time.
depends. For me, it depends what the second half of the season looks like. Right now, Mathis Albert is on the same trajectory that Pulisic and Gio Reyna were when they were at Dortmund, where they went to the U17s. They pushed them straight to the U19s very early because they realized they were too good for the U17s. And then by the second half of their season, their first season there, or their second season there, I'm sorry, they were with the first team. So there is a caveat here, but it's a big if. Mathis Albert, if he's with Dortmund's first team and coming off the bench in the second half of the season and generally playing well, I'm not, he doesn't have to score a belter or everything, but if he's playing well and looks like he can hang in the Bundesliga and he's an electric, then maybe that's the 26th player you bring just as a wild card. But as of right now, we have no evidence that's going to happen. Let's wait and see what the second half of the season looks like. Let's see what Mathis Albert or Kevin Sullivan looks like at the under-17 World Cup, because that's going to be the first big test for both of these kids.
Yeah,
right? These very hyped kids.
they better stand out at that level.
They better, yeah. They better.
If you don't
Otherwise,
stand out in the U17 World Cup, you should be nowhere near a World Cup roster.
to be fair, Giovanni Reina did not stand out in his under-17 World Cup at the same age. And yet, 2 months later, he was scoring belters for Dortmund's first team. So there are some caveats to that. But I understand generally what you're saying. Yes, I agree. Let's see what these kids look like in the under-17 World Cup.
The last one, I was the center forwards, and I think the center forwards are going to be pretty quick, pretty easy.
Yeah,
You're going to
it's an easy
change.
switch. I'm going to change Josh Sargent for Haji Wright. Sargent, as we have always said about Sargent, is a bit of a head case. And even though he's been scoring goals plenty for Norwich up until this last camp, went to this last camp, sort of had his last chance, didn't play well, and it seems to have affected him because ever since then, he's done nothing for Norwich. I think that Sargent is a little bit of a head case. When things are going well, he's on fire. When things are not going well, his confidence suffers, and then he turns into an almost useless player. And that's really unfortunate, but I'm sorry we can't have that in the US. Haji Wright took his chance, came on against Australia, and scored a brace.
Let me play devil's advocate with you, though. Sargent played in a World Cup, right? That's something that, and during that World Cup, he didn't score, so people are going to mention that. But he actually wasn't bad in the World Cup. He helped. He was part of the play where we scored against Wales, the Wales goal. He set up Pulisic for the pass, and overall, he was fine throughout the World Cup. Does that play in his favor at all?
No, because ever since then he's been terrible. Like not for club, right? And I'm a big Josh Sargent fan. I have kept on advocating him when people would say he hasn't scored in 5 years for the national team, right? It's like, yeah, I understand the context. He also rarely played under Berhalter because of injuries and Berhalter's love for Jesus Ferreira, lots of different reasons. I kept advocating for him and saying, and I still think we should have brought Josh Sargent to the Gold Cup because I think there's a chance that if Sargent's at the Gold Cup, he would definitely be scoring goals. He would score more than Aguimang, for sure, against that level of opposition. And I think that would have done a hell of a good for his confidence. But we didn't do that. Instead, we trotted out that Tronco out there who was terrible the whole Gold Cup, now has 1 goal for Derby. And then we give Josh Sargent, 70 minutes against a tough opponent. If he doesn't deliver, he's out. That being said, he still has to deliver. And it has been 3 years since the World Cup. I also don't appreciate that he didn't take the opportunity to go to the Bundesliga this summer. I'm sorry. Like, from a USMNT perspective, I know some people will say, oh, he did what's best for his family. That's totally fine. You're a human being. You can do what's best for your family. But from a USMNT perspective, we wanted you to go push yourself and show what you could do. You weren't being pushed in the championship. You were already a very good championship player. You chose to stay, just like we criticize guys who choose to stay in MLS. I think if you're too good for the championship and you have an opportunity to go somewhere else and you don't take it for personal reasons, that's fine, but that is going to impact your USMNT considerations, I think, or it should at least.
Yeah, I think people need to understand that when we talk about a player's decision, we're looking only from a soccer perspective. And if he had personal reasons to choose to stay in the second division of England over the Bundesliga, that is perfectly fine. And to be honest, for the most part, I do think you should probably prioritize your family because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? Ahead of anything. But there's always a trade-off. And sometimes, unfortunately, your family's needs don't match 100% your career needs. And he should prioritize his family, but it messes with his career a little bit. So it's fine what he did, but I see it also as a negative when it comes to his career. I think for me, the reason I would not have Sargent and have Haji there are a few things. Haji in the past few seasons was mainly playing as a winger, sometimes as a second striker for Coventry. Now he's become a center forward, and he's scoring even more than Sargent in the championship for the most part. So he beats Sargent at the club level now. His team is doing better. He's playing for a team. Coventry's what? Second place? First place? They're up there.
Sure.
They're up there. Sure. Yeah, they're up there. And for the national team, I mean, hasn't even been the best. God, Haji even scored that accidental goal in the World Cup, and Sargent didn't, right?
Yeah.
Haji did. And I mean, Haji got a brace just now against Australia. Has been playing much better for the national team.
So the Gold Cup as well.
Yeah, before he got injured. And I mean, Balogun's the best option. It's not close. And
No.
Pepe, actually, to me, he is behind Balogun and Haji. But the difference between Pepe is he is a bit more unique, where he is probably the only true like poacher that we have. You're playing a
Yeah.
low block and just crossing the ball into the box. He's probably the best finisher in that sense, in that scenario, a player that you very much need.
Yeah.
You're chasing a result, lobbing the ball into the box. Pepe's actually probably the best of the three that we have here right now for that specific scenario. Now, I'm going to say this again. There's no scenario, in my opinion, where Haji or Pepe start over Balogun unless Balogun's injured.
Yeah.
That's the only
Agreed.
scenario. So for me, the three up top right now would be Haji and Balogun, Pepe, and projecting into the 2026 World Cup, it'll very likely be the same. I'm also a big Sargent fan, and I wish things went differently, but hasn't scored in forever for the national team. And now even his club form took a hit, which was the one thing he had going for him. And I actually think Sargent will even be back in MLS sooner rather than later. He'll not back, he didn't play in MLS, but be back home and playing in MLS. So
Yeah.
for me,
I mean, I think that summer, like, it tells you a lot about the mentality of a player, right? Prioritizing his family, which, like we said, is nothing wrong with that, and that's good for you. But from a USMNT perspective, that can impact your considerations for the national team.
Mhm.
And I think a comfortable, cozy DP striker job where he's making 6-7 million a year in St. Louis, maybe wants to be closer to his family. His wife misses the US. That would not surprise me at all.
No, me neither. I think that's it. Yeah.
So that's it. Those are our
Kick me off.
predictions for the 2026 World, not our predictions, our preferences for the 2026 World Cup. That's the right word for it. Let us know yours in the bottom, guys, who you would bring. What I think I took away from this is what you said. Like, there's not that much depth, quality depth, because no injuries, and we're still player 22 to 26. We're kind of like, and like that sixth defender, that fifth wingback, that sixth attacking midfield. You know what I mean? There's 3 or 4 guys that were like, do I really love this? No, but it's better than the alternatives, And that's with no injuries. If there will be some injuries, there's no way we're going to go with a fully healthy player pool going to the World Cup. I would be shocked. So there's going to be some injuries. Hopefully it's not to the really key players. Chris Richards, Christian Pulisic, Balogun, Malik Tillman, Dest,
The
A-Rob.
fullbacks, yeah.
These are the guys that, like, you really cannot afford injuries to those guys, especially. That's also where we're more thin, right? Like, if McKennie gets injured, it will suck. But we do have a lot more coverage in midfield, But yeah, injuries is going to change a lot of things. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button before you leave if you haven't already. And if you're new, subscribe, guys. We are 8 months away from the World Cup, right? 7.5 months at this point. It's getting exciting. We have our last camp in November. December, the group stage draw. That's going to be fun. Stay in touch. We keep following. We keep going. It's going to be an exciting time, guys. We'll see you soon.